Hi and welcome to Ask GMBN Tech, the weekly Q&A session. You ask the questions, we give you something resembling an answer, I guess, maybe, hopefully. Are you with me? Right, get involved down there, use the hashtag Ask GMBN Tech. Please don't forget you can support the channel by heading to our shop. We've got loads of cool gear for EMBN, GMBN and GMBN Tech on there, and there's going to be loads of cool deals floating around. So be sure, if there's nothing right now you want, check back. There's always going to be fresh stuff in there. Okay, so first question this week is from, I'm not even going to bother reading that one out. Here is the question on the screen. We're always told that we should not use washing up liquid for cleaning our bikes. Why is it a thing? I always use it and I've never noticed any problems. It's fine as long as you rinse it off. So what you don't want, I mean, personally, I wouldn't put washing up liquid anywhere near my braking surfaces, but given what washing up liquid is designed to do, cut through grease and stuff, yes, it's a different type of grease, but it's still very good for cleaning your bike. The common misconception is that washing up liquid is bad for your bike because it contains salts. And we do know that salts can lead to corrosion. If you rinse it off and use water displacer, you'll be absolutely fine. Yes, it's not as good as using dedicated bike cleaners that have been formulated specially to cut through the types of mud and grease and stuff that are on your bike, but you could still use it, no problem. Now, here's the thing. That misconception about it having salt in is a bad thing. A lot of bike cleaners, one of the leading ingredients in them, if I can speak properly, is salt. Because the fact is great at cutting through stuff and cleaning things. There's just loads of other things in there to help make the finish on your bike look really good and to make sure all the worst stuff comes out. Yeah, it's good, but not as good as the dedicated stuff. Can you tell I've just had a coffee? Next question from D-Zig. D-Zig? I just bought a 2022 Levo Comp, so specialised Levo Comp carbon, that was spec'd with a Fox Rhythm front fork with a grip damper. A great fork, that. I have a Pike Ultimate 2022 fork, very nice, that I can bump up to 160mm, but it's got 35mm stanchions. The Fox is a 36mm. Do I swap it or leave it? I know I could just try it, but what do you think? To be honest, it's hard to know without back-to-backing between the two, but my gut feeling is stick with the Fox, to be honest. Now, I love the Pike. I've got one of those forks. I've got mine at 140mm and I absolutely love it. But the 35mm stanchions and the fact that the Fox one more than likely is their E-optimised model, which has a heavier duty crown, steerer and upper, like a CSU unit on it, it should have slightly stiffer performance fore and aft under braking. Can't tell without doing them back-to-back, but my gut instinct would go for that. I've got that fork on one of my, well, in fact, on my e-bike, and it works amazing. In fact, that grip damper on it, it doesn't even need the Grip 2 system. It works so well, especially on e-bikes. I would stick with that all day long. Happy days. Next question is from Bohan. How can I prevent cables rattling inside the frame? Okay, so this will vary depending on frames and the routing and things on yours. Some frames have internal channels, of course, you're going to get less rattling with those. Other ones, the cables are free to sort of rattle around on the inside. Now, some people, if you've got access, you can cable tie them together. That will stop it. But the best thing that I've found is that rubber tubing that you get with some frames. I fitted some recently on my Nukeproof for the dropper post cable on there, and it works a treat. A little bit fiddly to fit, but it's great once it's in there. So it's a soft rubber housing that goes on the outside of your, whatever it is, hose or cable that you're threading into the frame. You trim it roughly to length, but it can actually be too long and you squish it in is a better way of doing it rather than having too little. Feed it in and then you've got to make sure you have your exit and entry ports pushed in afterwards and you've got your cable that runs through it. And then in theory, it stops it rattling around. It's great stuff. A little bit fiddly, but it will quieten things down for you. Next question is from Kay Langford. Do you think you could tell me the list of components on the Commencal MX build? Yeah, no problem. There's a list coming at you right on screen now. So the frame was the Commencal Meta SX. It was a size large. I wish it was a size extra large because I wouldn't have ridden it. It was just a little bit small for me. The shock was a Marzocchi Bomber Air, the fork Marzocchi Bomber Z1. I did also have the coil conversion kit for it because I was planning on putting a coil shock originally, but as I said in the video, that frame wasn't compatible with coil, so I stuck with air front and rear. Cranks Shimano Dior 170mm, chain Shimano Dior, cassette Dior 1051, shifter Shimano XT iSpec 2, brakes Shimano SLX 4-pot on there, front and rear. And I think I had 2 or 3 rotors front and rear from memory. I'd have to check on that one. And they probably were Ice Tech, I would imagine. Wheels were Hunt Trail wide MTB setup, 27.5 rear, 29-inch front, which weren't at the time available in that configuration. You could either buy 27.5 or 29. That was the first time they offered them both together. The bar was a Pro, so it's essentially a Shimano handlebar on there, and a Pro stem. They were great, no frills, but great angles on them, and they were dirt cheap as well. I think they're about 35 quid each, those things. The post was from One Up Components. The saddle was a Physique Alpaca, and that was the one that had the little caddies on the underneath for fitting the CO2 cartridges in there, and it had a little multi-tool underneath with a little CO2 adapter. Real smart bit of kit, that, actually. Tyres, Vittoria Mazza Enduros, 29 by 2.4 on the front, 29 by 27.5 by 2.4 on the rear. Inserts front and rear, and too much sealant front and rear. I was building it for Rich to take to Finale, and you know how rocky that place is. He didn't destroy anything, which is quite rare for him. And then grips, Ergon GD1s. There you go. There's a list, and hopefully there's a few more cool shots of the bike on screen. Got to say, I'm particularly proud of that one. I thought that was probably one of the cooler bikes that I built. You know, all the cool kids I see that are out there riding, hitting massive jumps, they all seem to be riding Commencal at the moment. They've definitely got that thing going on, haven't they? Next up, Cruddy Fox _26. I'm not against e-bikes, but the eMTB and non-eMTB thing seems to be getting closer together. I'm genuinely worried that one day e-mountain bikes will take over the whole MTB scene once over the entry-level price bracket. Do you think that might happen? Honestly, I'm not sure. I hope not, though. I hope you will always have the choice of having regular mountain bikes and e-assisted mountain bikes, because in my eyes, yes, they're kind of the same thing, but they offer different things as well. I'll tell you what, though, one of the things to consider is that first experience that people have on bikes. Now, guessing by your handle, Cruddy Fox 26, you might like Muddy Fox bikes and you still ride a 26-inch wheel bike. You've probably ridden for quite a long time, probably my era sort of rider. If that's the case, when you got into mountain biking, it was so new and so exciting. There wasn't anywhere to ride. You went out and found stuff, yeah? And there wasn't anything to compare it against. So however you thought the ride was, and you saw other people smiling, you thought it was supposed to be like that. So you got on with it. These days, you imagine sending someone out on a full suspension bike or a hardtail bike to a modern trail centre out for their first ride, and they have a really bad experience because they were unfit, the bike wasn't set up, all these things that were problems. That could be the last time they ride a bike, and that would be really sad. If they have the same experience on an e-mountain bike, they go out for a ride and have a really great time because of the fact it's helped them with their fitness. And the irony is, you might be thinking, oh, that's giving them something they don't have. Well, it's not, because then they'll end up riding it more and more and more and more and getting fitter and fitter and stronger. I'm all for it, because the whole thing with mountain biking, and I think a lot of people might have forgotten this, it's supposed to be inclusive. It's for everyone. We're welcoming. We want everyone to come into our sport and do it. The more people to do it, the better it's going to be. So it kind of goes two ways. I will always be a mountain biker through and through, but I love e-bikes. I've got one. I love riding it. I just prefer the feel of a normal bike, and it feels like you're kind of there. So no, I don't think so. But I'd be interested to see what other people think. Do you think that mountain bikes and e-bikes are going to get so close together they're going to be the same thing? I do know that we're going to be doing more e-bike related stuff on GMBN and on GMBN Tech, but let's not forget that we've got EMBN, which is the specific place. That's where all the tech, all the info is going to be. But let's face it, people are out riding now, and in a riding group, someone's got an e-bike. Maybe all people have got them as secondary bikes if you've got enough money, but I think they're great. And this question's from Mully Bikes 81. I'm looking for a faster rolling rear tyre. I noticed that you, Doddy, often recommend a low profile tread design. My friend buys cheaper rear tyres with the same tread as his front. He thinks that the cheap tyres roll as fast as an expensive low profile tyre. Who is right? Okay, well, all right, so what he means by a cheap tyre is something with a firmer compound rubber. Now, I actually used to do this. So I was lucky enough in my magazine years that pretty much every year for a period of time, there was a trip going to Whistler every year. So I'd build my bike accordingly for it. I would always have I would use Maxxis tyres back then, because that's what you did with 26s. And I'd set them up tubeless, and I would always have a super tacky or a slow Rise on the front. But on the rear, I'd go for a 60A, which is a much firmer compound, because after a few days in Whistler Bike Park, riding that sort of stuff, your tyre looks like it's about 4 months old. So you want to give it the most amount of chance to survive as possible. But you can also roll faster. And I never found there was a load of places there where I felt like I needed the softest tyre. I like the control on the front, and I don't mind the back skipping around a bit if that's what it's going to do. So that's led to me, after doing those bikes for years, always searching for something faster as the rear and grippier for the front. So I'll always never make any sort of sacrifice in terms of rubber compound and grip. If it's soft, I'll run it on the front, no problem. Out back though, I do pedal between trails, a lot of pedaling on country lanes and bridleways and stuff, so I like a faster tyre. I kind of bet that the low profile tyre is still faster, but I think I might revisit it because it's a great pound saving option for people to be able to buy a cheap rear tyre and be able to ride fast on it. I think it's a great idea. So I don't know who's right, but I kind of feel like the low profile tyre, it would make sense that it is faster. A good question. Next question's from James Belton. I'm going to throw it on screen because it's a big old question. But this is a good one. It's about saving money and not spending loads of money on your bike afterwards, because let's face it, mountain biking is an expensive hobby. So I would say lubricant is the most important thing. And I would say have a wet lube and a dry lube. I would say have a general purpose grease. Whatever grease it is you choose to buy, get one that is carbon safe. Whether you've got carbon stuff or not, it means you won't have to buy another grease if you ever do get anything. It also means your friends can use it. Grease is sparing. Lubricants, if you have one dry and one wet lube, there's no need to get fancy ceramic ones, just the standard wet or dry lubes you can get on the market. It's going to do you a favour. If you run the dry in dry conditions, you're not going to track loads of stuff to it. If you use it in wet conditions, you're going to have to keep applying it, so you won't save money there. So stick with the wet for wet, the dry for dry. That's going to do you a favour. And as far as cleaning stuff, yes, I've said this in another ask recently, bike wash, dedicated bike washing products will always be better because they're designed for that. But you can just use washing up liquid, provided that you wash it out of your bike correctly. But I would say one additional thing on top of those 2 lubricants to get and a grease, which will all serve you well, would be to get a bike spray. And when I say a bike spray, I mean a water displacing spray. Provided you get all of the water out of your drive chain and transmission, in theory, it should never rust. Yeah, and that is, after that's done, you dry it down and you apply your lubricant. When you buy your lubes, your chain lubes, don't buy the spray ones. Spray lubes are good for certain purposes, but if you want to save money and you want your lubes to go further, use the dropper ones, because you can put a dropper on the chain at a time. Start with your master link, all the way around, job done. And there we go. Another ask in the bag. If you've got any questions, please do let us know in the comments underneath. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. We love the questions. Keep them coming. Thanks.